I can't even have my name associated with the bare minimum. So it's come up many times before, but I saw it again. I'm part of an online group of performers, and this was just a little meme that said performer math equals $1,000 in 20 hours on something that will be on stage for 30 seconds. And I had to respond with, oh, I can beat that.
Of course he did. Yes,
We
he
make
did.
our own stuff, and that's kind of one of the foundations of our relationship. It's one of the ways that we really connected in those early days and stay connected, and one of the ways that we even function as a family now,
Yeah.
which is lovely.
Yeah.
I am Felix. This is my partner Athena, who is a former Las Vegas showgirl. I'm an entertainer myself. I do mentalism and comedy, and this is a project that we created to kind of put together and gather all of us for the sake of our adventures in what we call one big caper.
It doesn't matter. We're not going to go too far on this. We're just going to do the
We're
bare
not gonna.
minimum.
Oh, great! My favorite, the bare minimum.
Is it your favorite?
I can't even have my name associated with the bare minimum.
Really?
It's off-brand. Can't do it.
Off brand.
Mm.
It's off brand for Dick
It's
or
against the Bible for
the Felix code.
anything I'm involved with. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. If I got a sponsor deal from a half-ass company, I'd have to say no.
Okay.
Yeah,
What's a half-ass company like?
Timu.
Oh,
Aren't they just like false advertising and making good on a contract by sending something?
thing.
Anyway, it truly is one of the foundations of our relationship, and I think it's just because we have this in common. We happen to be artistically minded people
Mm-hmm.
and skill minded people,
We're makers.
trained.
Mm-hmm. We're
Um,
makers.
we teach each other stuff. We inspire each
I
other.
think that's what makes us makers.
Yeah, and that's what this episode's about. This, in many ways, I believe, is going to be a part two. So if you didn't catch our last episode, I certainly encourage you to do that because this is kind of an expansion on many of the things that we had to share.
So it is something we do. We make stuff. We love to make stuff. We love to learn to make stuff. That is just part of who we are. And as Felix said, it brought us together as a couple because, wow, like two minds and pairs of hands are better than one, I think. And we've created some really really cool stuff together. Um, but there is just in the work I've done in the last 4 years, mindset work and the business coaching that I've been part of, I have kind of changed my idea of how much I'm willing to put into something for the sake of whatever. Um, but it's generally it has to do with money
It's
and
purpose
time.
dependent, is what you're
Purpose.
saying? Your willingness to invest X amount of time is dependent upon what the usage
What
is or
the
what the purpose
results,
is.
or yeah, if I can make money from it. So if that's making me sound like a money grabbing person, then it is.
Well, okay, so one of the bottom line things that I think we'll share during the course of this episode is the fact that in most cases, DIY is not going to earn you any money.
Right. But it's also not going to save me money. And that's my biggest problem is when I see the memes that say, I'm cheap, therefore I
That's impossible.
craft.
It's
Because
impossible.
every single hobby is expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, number one. Number two, though, is like, why I think that the people that say that are too cheap to pay to have a skilled person do it.
Well, then they are too thrifty to pay for supplies that are worth working with.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so that's my whole view of this episode is that like I will DIY something. Like I said in the last episode, the teaser, I knit this sweater. I knit my last sweater. I knit pretty much everything I wear. And I am getting into sewing. I'm not getting into, I've been sewing since I was like 7, but I'm I have a plan to create my wardrobe by hand, and it's gonna look amazing.
That's one of the few
But
ways to, after you've developed the skills, but
yeah,
to own the quality garments that you want to be the owner of,
right,
to
right,
get the quality.
yeah.
Yeah.
But sometimes I see you DIYing stuff, and I'm just like, why don't you just pay someone to do it, or why don't you just buy the thing? So, what was it? I can't remember what it was, but I was just like, this is an episode.
Oh,
Yeah, and I just don't remember what it was. But I was just like, how many hours are you spending doing this experiment? Because it usually our DIY inspirations are experiments. We're like, ooh, could I make that? But for other people, DIY is to save money. And yes, you can save money because, yes, there are toxic capitalist people out there preying on people that have no skill or lack the skills to do certain things. Like, oh, I don't know, home improvement people that install floors and and things that someone could do themselves if they're skilled and crafty.
I've
And
seen it done poorly.
I
I
know,
have done a lot of handyman kind of work for people who needed my help because they thought they could learn to do something on YouTube, and caused a larger problem that they finally surrendered and
and then had to
called
pay
somebody.
a lot
Yeah,
more money to
yeah,
fix.
yeah.
Right, so that's kind of my problem. Like, it's not always in your best interest to DIY, especially because your time costs money, whether you realize it or not. Like, you could,
Every craftsperson project requires, there's a learning curve involved
yeah,
in everything, right?
right, yeah.
Yeah.
So sometimes I've seen some of his projects, and like a perfect example is my sister. She was mad. She wasn't mad. She was just like in disbelief that I would pay $600 to have my brakes fixed. And the car I drive is Fiat 500X, and it's not easy to fix. Unfortunately, I didn't know that when I bought the car that it was just going to be a big pain in the butt to get fixed all the time. But the lug screws or lug nuts or whatever they're called, it is metric, which is not the same as any other car, so you need a special tool for it, and it's not cheap. But do I really want to spend X amount of dollars on this tool so I could change my own brakes and save me money over time, or how often am I going to have to change my brakes? So I just chose to have someone do it for me. I took it to my shop that I depend on, that I trust them. They're not going to overcharge me, and it's $600 because of the cost of the brake pads. That's what the biggest cost was. But my sister was kind of just like, why are you paying that? And then a couple months later, her person was in the driveway fighting all day with the car. Also, not an American car, like an Acura, which is, what is that? Is it is it a European car? Acura?
No.
No. Anyway, an Acura, same problem. Didn't have the tools, had to buy the tool. And they were trying to save money. They were trying to save that, I don't know what they were quoted to have their brakes fixed, but they were trying to save the money. So how many hours did he spend fighting? Because he's not a mechanic and he's not really skilled at trying to figure this stuff out. It's just not his thing. And he spent hours trying to figure out how to replace the brakes, probably like 2 days
Mhm.
worth of time. And I don't know about you, but how much money can you make in 2 days? You know what I
I have,
mean?
I have two similar stories, and it's just to oversell the same point. And one of those is that I am very qualified, skilled in terms of doing laundry. Right, I can do
Hmm.
my own shirt laundry. I can
Yeah.
iron.
Hmm.
I've used to iron
Right.
for my family. Um, takes a lot of time to do that,
Uh-huh.
and so for the cost, I thought about it. I just have a shirt laundry service
Hmm.
do my shirts, although they have my lists of preferences, like
Hmm.
I don't like starch,
Hmm.
and a lot of business people like starch in their shirts. It shortens the lifespan of the shirt, so
Yeah.
I definitely don't use it. But another that comes to mind is that someone whom I used to be married to got made fun of by her whole family because she invested in a lawn service, like a
Maintenance.
landscaping
Oh.
kind of, but more just maintenance,
Hmm.
but it's because she's not skilled nor very interested in doing yard work,
Yeah.
and they can come because they have a crew. They get it done in 30 minutes, and it's done.
It's done.
Yeah.
Yep. And
Um,
it's on. You can put it on a schedule, and they can just come do it for you. And you're giving money to the economy. You're helping people that can do a good job make money.
mhm.
So that's my thing. I will do DIY stuff if it's something I'll enjoy doing, and I want to learn how to do. So like my realm is paper crafts, fiber arts, and some level of sewing. And I haven't gotten into quilting really, but I do like to make stuff. We make our own cakes at home. We make our own baked goods. I will not buy the crap that they sell at the bakeries at the stores because it literally is crap, and I don't know what they put in it. But I know what's in my muffins that I make. So
well, okay. So to bring that back to being on point, one of the great benefits of doing things yourself is that you know what's in it
yeah,
and you can fix it.
you know how to maintain
You
it.
know how to maintain it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, what went into it. You know how much time you spent on it. Usually, like I have an app on my phone that tracks my time that I spend on my sweaters.
We talk about that pretty often, which is what's your time worth, and that's certainly a subject that needs to be addressed when you're talking about creating things for yourself. Because I know how much time we have each spent on one of our collaborative projects, like
Mm-hmm.
a showgirl hat. The
Yep.
showgirl hat can represent collectively 50, 60 hours of work.
At least, yeah. Yeah, the one that I'm selling now, the red one, that was my time was 30 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And I did it all on camera. So I have 30 hours documented of
That
me.
was one of my smaller wire sculptures,
Yeah.
but I still put some time into it.
Well,
So,
you did 5 of them. So
right.
the
But
first one took the longest,
yeah.
and then the subsequent ones, once you had your template or whatever, then. So there's that to consider too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know. I just there's like I said, I guess it's just a choice, and you have to ask yourself how much time am I willing to put into this, and do I really want to put the time to do this?
I
And
would say, as a craftsperson, also become a specialist in one or a few things, not in everything, because part of the major expense that goes into DIY has to do with the tools
yeah, and the
and the
materials, yeah,
supplies.
yeah,
So your investment off the top is going to cost whatever it's going to cost more than whatever it would cost to buy something off the shelf, and that's just to get prepared to do the thing.
and I think that's why people DIY or don't DIY is because they're like, oh, it's just cheaper to buy it, but like you can't make your own
If there's
ostrich
a
boa.
possibility that you're going to make more than one of these things, then we're starting to talk about the possibility that you could eventually be saving a great deal of money.
Right.
There are craft resellers, craft supply resellers, which is interesting to me, and it makes absolute sense because
Yeah.
there are some things I've wanted to learn or had the desire to get into as a maker.
Yeah.
I got all the supplies for it, and I made a few things, and I thought, okay, well, I know that, but I'm probably not ever going to do it again. Why
Yeah.
do I still have that stuff? I could
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
trade it or
Thanks,
something.
KonMari.
Um,
No, and
well,
I think it's great. Like I donated a whole tub full of feathers and rhinestones and all kinds of craft supplies that were like good quality stuff to a craft thrift store or an art thrift store, and who knows how much money they made from that? Because I mean they had some good
mhm,
feathers, so hopefully they priced appropriately. But I think that That's also part of the problem with DIY is the expense that goes into it, and then you get that guilt because you like I spent all that money on those supplies, and then you're like you like force yourself to try to pick it up again, and you just feel guilty and more guilty and more guilty. But I think that's the money's already gone. You can't really ever get it back.
Right.
I mean, you can try to sell it,
I,
but
all of this, we're still essentially saying that I definitely disagree with the whole idea of why don't I save money by doing it myself? It's just impossible.
yeah, I'm surprised that he's saying that.
No, I
But
totally. There are things that I do in defiance of that, even though I know better. Um,
oh yeah, his inner rebel. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. We talked about rebels here. um, yeah, I don't really have much to say. I said everything I wanted to say. We're
I
gonna,
think a
I
lot of
guess.
it too. Like the assurance of quality is not necessarily communicated when you buy something. Um,
Well, and I think that's because of the refund and return policies. That didn't exist like 40 years ago. You couldn't return something.
Fair enough,
So you had to think about it and feel it before you bought it. You had to be sure. And
right?
now you could just take it back if you're like, oh, this sucks.
Well,
You just take it back.
something that I have a hard time admitting this or even understanding it for that matter. But there are some people who simply don't have an education about quality. If it comes to textiles or whatever, they're just not learned to be able to tell the difference between a synthetic and a natural fabric. I mean, those people are out there, and I understand that. And shame on their parents. But
That's how you learn? Your parents?
yeah, no,
No.
it's not how I
You
learned.
don't think so? Or you think so?
Yeah, actually, it was.
Your mom and dad taught you the difference between cotton and polyester?
Um, why do you say no?
Because I don't think they know the difference.
That's worth some exploration.
Okay, well, next
Yeah,
time I
I
go to
do.
dinner
I
at your
think they
mom's, I'm
do.
going to ask her.
Okay, I do think they knew the difference. But
Does it? I mean, well, okay, go ahead.
the richest part of their lives, was during a time that polyester and synthetics were kind of promising to take over and save us all,
And now they're burning and causing fires in Africa.
because they're extremely flammable. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but yes, quality I think was something that was instilled in me by my
Okay. Well,
parents.
I
Yeah,
didn't say quality. You were talking about
the difference
the
between
differences.
right,
That's
right.
what I was talking about. I wasn't talking about quality.
Well, I have
I think
grown to
that's learned over time.
develop a sensitivity to the hand of a fabric or to
Get him
what?
talking about hands of
Oh, I've
fabric.
talked about it before
I
on this
know. I'm
podcast.
teasing
Yeah,
you. Yeah. I that was that's something I picked up, or like probably my teen years, making my own ballet skirts and things. Like, what's the difference between a crepe georgette and silk? And silk feels phenomenal, but it doesn't have the same weight to when you're twirling and flare out as a silk georgette or a crepe, whatever. So, but those types of things are explored as you are either having bespoke items made for you or you're making them yourself, and you go to a fabric store that has smart, learned learned is what they I don't
learn
even
it.
know, people that can help you choose fabrics for your projects and things like
Mm.
that. So
Yeah, mentors. Learning from other people is the easiest way. It's a
yeah,
heck of a lot easier than just reading a book about it. Um,
yeah, there's lots of books about it.
I recognize also that I think any interest, whether it's textiles or fiber arts, as you put it, or um, electronics, or whatever possible thing you can get into, it can be very intimidating at the offset, and that's maybe part of the reason that it's starting to vanish in terms of craftspeople who have these educations. But learning about textiles, the way we talk about it, might to someone else feel like sitting in a flight deck for the first time and having an instrument panel in front of you and not knowing what any of these gauges or dials do.
Yeah.
Um, and it takes a while to learn one at a time. Like
think it's like that for everything. I'm learning astrology, and that's
Hmm.
kind of like, what are all these symbols? I know what they mean, but what does that mean? You know,
Hmm.
why does that mean that? So I think I'm pleased that, like you're saying, that there's a downturn of makers. I think it's the opposite. I think more people are wanting to make because there's so many people on all the social medias that are making stuff.
I think a recent historical time that we shared as a
Yeah,
planet
yeah.
created a lot of new makers,
Oh yeah.
mostly cooks.
Which is funny to me.
Right.
Yeah, like a lot of people just ate and drank themselves in excess, and so yeah, this is food. Therefore, it's something I can spend money and time
We got
and effort.
fancy. We had an opportunity to get fancy in learning to cook and
Yeah.
create sourdoughs.
Oh yeah, and
And
unfortunately, I wasn't in the knitting community very much. I kind of just like shut the whole world off, just to protect myself. But I don't know what the knitters were doing. I've seen posts on my favorite Ravelry um, website about people saying, "Oh, in the pandemic, I just figured I might as well knit." And so I think some people were, and I know that one yarn store, local yarn store in Denver, opened up like that fall the first year, and
oh,
not a good time to open up a store when no one can even go to your store.
right.
So the way she survived was she took web orders and she hand delivered, and she would bring all of the colors to you and you could pick
Wow.
by, yeah.
Okay.
And it's such a cute store, and it's like in what my daughter calls a millennial village.
All right.
um but that's how she survived. And so, like, what are we, 3 years later, and she's still, going strong and in a bigger space than she was when she started her lease, which is cool. That
Nice.
just happened this year. But I think that the biggest thing about DIY versus buying is like, how much time do you have?
Mhm.
Especially if you don't have the skills. Like, we have a lot of skills, and I think a lot of those skills are uh, cross functional, or not cross functional. What is it? Transferable between each. So some craft things it's easier for us to pick up than like the average person who's not so crafty or is new at making or being a crafter. It may be intimidating to start, but I think that it just takes time and practice. Like the careers people have, they didn't come in knowing everything when they went into their jobs. It took time to build up the skills. So I just think people should just take more time to DIY, or not DIY, to craft and make, and then challenge themselves to DIY some stuff. Sometimes maybe might be
Here's the
fun.
thing: you can do it, and if you have that much interest in it, then you can get over the making a commitment stage and just get into it. Don't be intimidated. You'll get it. If you want to do it, then you'll do it. You wouldn't be the first person, of course. So just do it, right? I mean, somebody else coined that phrase, but it's if you've ever thought, oh, someday I'm going to, or I've always wanted to, dot dot dot, do it.
Yeah. Yep. And we had a whole episode about that right here. Anything else you want to say about DIY versus buying?
It's going to come up because that's what I do. I make stuff. I make, as an entertainer who uses props, most of the props that you see me use on stage are things that I've made. And part of the reason I made them is because anything similar that is already in existence is below the quality of my standard,
Yeah,
or
because it's
I
mass
want to
produced.
be absolutely certain that I have the only one.
Right. Or two in your case, since he's a
I
big
make
guy,
two of
he
everything.
makes two of everything. But it's a wise thing to do. I made two pairs of pasties because sometimes you might lose one, and I never lost a pasty.
Right.
I did pop pasties, but I didn't lose them. But that's a
That's a different topic altogether. Goodness.
but I think that the whole conversation, or the debate, DIY versus buy, I think it just depends on you, and how much time do you have, and how much time do you want to spend and put into the project, and then how much money do you have?
What are your values when it
Yeah,
comes to this
what do you
thing?
value? and we did a whole episode about values and what you value. So if you value quality and you know you can't do that quality, save some money. Don't have the latte for a couple months and see how much money you can save to put towards your dream of owning a hand knit sweater or something. I don't know if people actually knit hand knit sweaters for people anymore. But
They do. I'd like to see what the pricing is on those things.
I mean, I know that there's a person in Bulgaria that's doing something on Etsy, and I've seen a lot of her sweaters. I'm like, those look really cool. She might be machine knitting though, because they're not very expensive, but the dollar probably goes further.
I'm aware by proximity to it happening. I'm aware of what skeins of yarn cost if they're like high quality material, natural fibers, high quality dyes, high quality materials, certain gauges. I'm aware that just the raw materials will be more costly than something that's on a rack.
Yeah. These are all wool. I never buy anything with a blend because I can't. I just can't. And the blend.
You're a purist, right?
Yeah, I'm totally a purist. So I will only buy merino. I will only buy alpaca. I will. If it's a blend, it has to be a natural blend. It can't be like nylon and wool. I mean, it's literally it's like half the price for a blend of nylon. So if you buy 70% nylon with 30% wool, it's like $10 versus $20 a skein. And this sweater took 5. So I think this one cost $100. It was 5 skeins. So I know sweaters cost that much if you hand knit them yourself. I won't buy sweaters ever. Like I'm just gonna make
Well, it's not uncommon, and I've seen it. Some people will find it outrageous. Other people will find it quite normal that there are $1,000, $1,500, $2,000 sweaters available right now. I mean, that's to some people that's not
like,
outrageous.
is that a cashmere sweater? Probably not. Who knows?
But cashmere is not the only luxury fabric.
Like cashmere is the most. There's yak, which isn't as soft. Baby alpaca is pretty nice. Alpaca with silk is pretty nice. That's my next sweater. Alpaca silk, cashmere, and I think a little bit of wool. But and we're going to talk about it soon. I don't know when, but we're going to talk about quality. We're just going to go a whole tangent, a whole episode about the quality.
Okay.
And I mean, I think the craftsmanship will come in to it, the conversation, because it always does. But again, it's also the quality of your materials. And even if you're a painter, if you buy, my daughter, she doesn't buy the cheap paint at Michael's anymore. She buys artist.
Her standards are being raised.
Yep.
With experience.
And she bought this tiny, like it literally was this big, like this 2-inch tube of paint. It was only $4, but I'm just like, that's not a lot of paint.
She doesn't use
but she doesn't use it like
children's supplies anymore.
It's not like that. So she bought it, and that was just, she's already learning the quality thing without us even stepping in. I think she's feeling it herself. Oh, you stepped in?
I mention it once in a while.
I mean, we're snobs, so they hear about quality all the time. So anything else to say?
No, but as always, if you have any questions or ideas for us, please get a hold of us any old time at hello@onebigcaper.com.
And let us know in the comments below. Do you DIY or do you buy? What helps you decide which you do in which situation? I do not DIY my breaks, but I will DIY a sweater. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Bye.